unlimited power.
Hello, and thank you for joining Sloppy Zen today. We are going to be discussing the book Zen Training by Katsuki Sekida. That's this book right here. And we've already done a distillation of the introduction and the first chapter of the book. So if you haven't taken a look at those, I suggest you watch those videos first. But we are going to get into the meat of the book now, and this chapter that we're going to discuss is on the position you sit in for Zazen. So I'm going to add a caveat here that you should consult a physician before trying Zazen if you haven't done it before, especially if you have problems with your back or your joints. After all, you're going to be sitting immobile for an extended period of time, and you could experience some discomfort if you're not used to sitting in that such a position for an extended period of time. Now, it may be different from what you've seen in Zen or Zazen on TV. You don't have to sit in the full lotus. That's what you'll see most of the time. There are other positions you can do. In fact, you don't have to sit at all. It's just that it's been found through the ages that it's been the most effective way of reaching Samdhi. Sekida's practice seems to be that of the Soto Zen lineage, based on what I could glean from the text. He doesn't really say it outright. So if you practice Rinzai or another form of Zen, what you do may not be exactly the same for Zazen, but I think it's going to be close enough. But right now, let me get out of my lawyerly caveats and get down to the distillation. First, you need to set up your spot for Zazen. So what you do is get a large cushion or a folded blanket near a wall. And that large cushion is typically called a zabuton. You would also have a significantly smaller and thicker cushion called the zafu, and that's placed near the rear of the zabuton, upon which you would actually sit upon while you're facing the wall during Zazen. Now, zafus are typically round, but they can be filled with a variety of materials. Many of them are filled with buckwheat hulls, like mine are. Some zafus, when you look at it, you say, wow, that looks like it's very high, it's very thick. But you can decide then typically to be able to remove some of the material as you're needed to suit your Zen practice and see, so you can sit in a comfortable position. It's entirely up to you what height you need for that. So if it seems high, as long as you can remove it, that may be to your advantage. The zabuton, though, the cushion, the larger cushion, should be about 3 feet square, and while that zafu is going to be a lot smaller and a lot firmer, it just needs to support your buttocks. And typically, you're just not going to sit all the way back on it. You don't rest your thighs on it in order to maintain a correct posture. You're also going to want to wear loose, comfortable clothes, but there's no real requirement here. You just have to make sure it's comfortable enough for you to be able to sit for 30 minutes completely immobile in. Sekida doesn't mention this, but you might want to find a quiet, comfortable room as well. Personally, I squirrel away in the attic, where it's an inferno in the summer and an icebox in the winter, and it contains a catastrophe of unwanted items. I'd have to build a new house for something better, so I think you may be able to learn a lesson from that. You might also have to make do with what you have. Just don't use, I don't have exactly the right space, or I don't even have the right space, as an excuse, because you're always going to have an excuse. And I know because I've done it. In terms of the sitting positions themselves, though, Sekida mentions a few. There's one called Kekka Fuza, and that is the full lotus. Another one he talks about is Hanka Fuza, which is half lotus. Another one is a modified Burmese position. And the last one is a straddling position, also known as Seiza. Now, with all these positions that you could choose, you'd be facing the wall. Now, in my practice, I don't do that. My prior practice before Zen was Vipassana, and in the Sangha, which I attend, it's Rinzai, where they typically face outward. And I also attend another group where we're all just arranged in a circle. So it's going to be up to you what you do, especially if you're practicing on your own, but just know that if you're in a more formal setting, if you're in Soto, you're going to be facing the wall. And if you're in Rinzai, you're going to be facing outward. It's also kind of difficult to post videos when you're just looking at the back of my head. So that's another thing. That's another reason why I don't face the wall. One thing though, if you are facing the wall, make sure your zabuton is parallel to the wall. And when you sit, make sure your knees are parallel to the wall if you imagine a line going through them. Otherwise, you're going to be likely to sit in a misaligned or a twisted position, and it could get uncomfortable. Now let's get back to discussing the 4 positions that I mentioned. Full lotus, or Kekka Fuza, is typically a difficult position for beginners, but it is a very balanced and a symmetrical position. In this, your right foot is going to rest on the left thigh, and your left foot is going to rest on your right thigh. Rest your hands in your lap, and your thumbs should touch, forming an O. Now, Sekida doesn't recommend the half lotus, as it tends to misalign the spine and the shoulders get raised up. With that position, the right foot is going to be under the left thigh, while your left foot is on top of the right thigh. And unfortunately, there are ways to correct the misalignment that might occur in half lotus, but really that's kind of beyond the scope of this distillation. He does like what he calls the modified Burmese position, and that's where both your feet are flat on the zabuton while making sure your waist is forward. And that's also my preferred position. And until I learn the art of pretzel making, I'm just going to use the Burmese position rather than full lotus. There is also the straddling, or the Seiza position, where you're basically straddling the zafu with your buttocks just resting on the zafu and your knees are on the zabuton. Sekida likes that position as it helps you learn how to stress the lower abdomen, which is the tendon, and he places a lot of emphasis on stressing, putting bodily stress on the tendon in the text. Now, if your zafu isn't big enough for Seiza position, you can also stack something underneath it to raise your zafu up, or if you can just stack multiple zafus in order to reach the correct height for the Seiza position. And for all of the positions, you want your knees to be resting on the zabuton, and you want your pelvis to be immobile. You don't want your torso leaning in any kind of direction. You just want it all straight up. Keep your waist muscles contracted if you need to help keep you upright. Your head and your body should be in a vertical from the base of the spine to the belly button, the trunk, the throat, and the center of the forehead. You want to avoid curving at all times. So if you could imagine looking straight at you from the front, it should be a straight line to the heavens up. And I'll put it a lot more bluntly, viewed from the front, you should have a straight line going from your ass to the heavens, quite frankly. But viewing your body from the side is a different story because your spine is naturally curved, so it can't be in a straight line. The waist should be forward by pushing forward from the top of your pelvis. And I kind of like to imagine that as if you want to show off your beer belly. but only with the top of your hips, then from your abdominal muscles. We're not trying to do belly dancing here. We're just trying to kind of just push it forward. But we're also going to get to showing off your beer belly in another chapter when we get to breathing. So if you haven't started rampant alcohol consumption, now's the time. Maybe not. But pushing out like that helps put pressure on your tendon area in the lower abdomen, and the weight of the body there, you can get a calm mental state and a good solid posture. And in the next chapter, we're going to discuss the physiological reasons why you want that. Also, you should have your head tilted down just a few degrees, so your forehead goes just past your chin. Your neck would tilt slightly forward in doing so. I don't know if I can demonstrate here. Can't tell. I don't have eyes on the side of my head, but that's good. It's not absolutely necessary, but it may assist you in entering Samdhi, and it could help you avoid some aches. So avoid tilting your head up, too much down. You really just gently down. Once you've achieved that position, though, that you prefer, you should start out by lowering your chest and your shoulders to relieve tension, and place your hands on your knees with your knuckles outward and let out a big exhale. Then you can return your hands to underneath your navel and form a O. You probably can't see it with the camera here, but I'll just do it like that, with your thumbs touching upward. Now, during Zazen, you might find you're not sitting correctly. What you could do is consider practicing without a shirt on or underwear down to your waist. You don't have to get totally nude here. And you might consider observing your posture in a mirror or a camcorder or a video camera like I'm doing, so you can see your posture in real time like that, and then you can correct the faults. I mean, you could even record it and correct the faults using what we have now compared to what we had in Sekida's time. And if you have someone else that's around that can observe you and knows issues with your posture, that's even better. If you are experiencing pain, though, that's a symptom of incorrect posture or possibly a medical issue, and it may be necessary to have a teacher show you the correct posture. And again, since technology has changed since Sekida wrote this book, early to mid 70s, it's a lot more feasible now than in his time. For example, I found a Sangha on meetup.com, and with the advent of video conferencing, it's become less of a hindrance to join a Sangha or get help than ever before. Now, it might not be enough when you're doing this by yourself, especially, to just correct one point of posture. That's kind of like cutting the head off a hydra. You might think you're correcting one thing, but then in the course of correcting it, something else arises up. So you may think you've corrected the position of your neck, only now your shoulders are out of alignment. All right, I'm over-exaggerating there, but that can certainly happen, especially along the spine. So it takes a lot of patience and slow, patient corrections to get that posture right. Now, Sekida noted there are some symptoms that you might indicate that your posture is correct, and there were some ways he suggested to correct it. So, for example, if you experience pain in your buttocks, in your bottom there, it may be that your body is inclined. So you might want to adjust your inclination. We always want to be straight up. We don't want to be, especially to the side. That may cause pain in the buttocks when you're leaning one way or the other. One side's going to be stressed. Another symptom could be pain in the back and the shoulders. And that could be from crouching. So what you should do is move your buttocks back and put your belly forward. You don't want to be hunched over. You want to be forward like that. Show your beer belly. Another symptom could be that your stomach area is cramped and stiff. And what you should do then, or try to do, is just move your buttocks back. Another item that could arise is that you're unstable, and I can tell you personally this arises for me a lot. If I find that the cause of that could be that your back is rounded, your knees might not touch the cushion, and your belly is kind of caved in. What you can try is making your zafu thicker. Another issue that you could have is like you feel some pressure in your neck. What could be is that your head and neck are tilted up and your chin is out. You don't want it to be out like that. You want to tilt that head slightly down so the forehead is slightly forward and the chin is back. Sometimes the curvature of the body is just so ingrained, especially from an early age, that it is just going to be impossible to correct it. And to try to correct it, quite frankly, might do you more harm than good. And there could be other physical reasons why you can't reach that posture. You could have vertebra fuse, for example. It just might not be physically possible. Nevertheless, it's still possible to reach Samdhi even without reaching the so-called correct position. And you don't even have to sit on cushion to reach Samdhi, though it is the traditional practice. You can advance your practice in Zen even though you're bedbound. You could sit in a chair, and if you need to do so, you can still proceed in Zen. Someone that I practice with, and she's been practicing way longer than I have. She's been practicing for over 20 years. She sits in a chair regularly as part of her practice. What you have to do is, with whatever practice you follow, you simply follow the form as best as you can while sitting in a chair. And similarly, if you're bedbound, you should try to follow along with the practice as best as you can. You're not going to be able to do the posture exactly, but you could get yourself aligned. I actually just tried doing that this morning. I wasn't feeling so hot. My stomach was out of control. I just did it lying down, put my head on the zafu, and I had a really good meditation just lying down. So it is certainly possible. If you're doing the Seiza position, you can even buy special seats where you can just sit down on that seat for the Seiza position. So that really concludes the sitting position chapter. Now, as always, please feel free to refer to it as well as any of the other chapters that I've put up. And don't hesitate to leave a question in the comments. And if I can answer a question about Zen, I will. But I'm just a Zen student like you, and by no means a master or an expert. So if any of you have a solution to what someone is facing, please do chime in and offer them a solution. The next chapter I'm going to distill is going to be on the physiology of attention, and hope you'll join us for that. And as always, please click the like and please click the subscribe if you haven't already. And please, if you found this useful, please share it with other people. Hopefully they can get some use out of it, whether it's with a Sangha, a friend, a loved one. That would be great. Hope they get some use out of it as well as you. And I hope you will join us again on Sloppy Zen. Have an empty day.